And I think if you almost went to anyone on campus, regardless of where they are after their freshman year or what they're doing or what they've gotten into, they'll always remember their DOC trip freshman year as like one of the highlights of their Dartmouth experience.
Yeah, it's definitely like a really big thing. I think it's really cool because other schools don't have this, and or they have similar programs that don't run quite the same way as our Dartmouth one does.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get through freshman year, you get through orientation, but I think this program makes the first month of school so much better, like for incoming freshmen. It just makes such a huge difference coming in knowing a group of 6 people and a couple upperclassmen and just being a little more comfortable with everything.
Yeah.
I think the DOC trip, it gives incoming students this incredible opportunity to just like voice all of their questions to a number of different resources that at other schools you don't have that opportunity. You kind of go in with all these questions and no resources necessarily.
Right.
So I think it does a really good job.
So I know we talked about all the different types of trips that there are.
Yeah.
And I know, for instance, you do a fall sport, and I know a lot of the athletes who do fall sports can't do, really intense trips because they can't hurt themselves, but still want to do a trip. And of course, there are tons of people that just don't like the outdoors, but still want to be involved somehow. Can you just go over a couple of the trips again, like what those types of trips are that are, and I know there's the hiking and the mountain climbing.
Yeah.
And I know I did mountain climbing and loved it, but there's the whitewater rafting. But I think there's also like nature photography, nature painting.
My best friend freshman year hates outside. Pretty much hates everything about outside. And she went on a DOC trip and had a great experience. She's an English major and loves writing, and so she went on nature writing.
Oh, cool.
And so it's led by students who are hopefully interested in writing. And there's things like nature writing, nature photography, and they stay in a cabin. You can do hiking if you want to in the area, but you don't have to do anything, and you kind of hang out and have an opportunity to, we call them the nature appreciation trips, which is cool. There's painting, there's photography, and there's writing, and I think those are the 3 big ones. And then there's things like fishing. There's a fishing trip. So it's really, the point of it is to have something for everyone.
Right.
So even for people who have never been outside and
absolutely.
like have never been in the woods before, like that's a lot of people at Dartmouth because we're in the middle of the woods, and I'm from Maine, so I grew up in the woods, but like
and a lot of people come from cities.
Yeah, people from cities who haven't done hiking before.
Sure.
There's definitely something that's comfortable for everyone to some extent.
Yeah, and I know a lot of my friends who completely said they didn't like the outdoors when they came. Went on their DOC trip, did one that kind of wasn't as outdoorsy, but still was obviously in the outdoors somewhat or had something to do with nature. And then now they have this passion for hiking. On the weekends they'll go hike in the mountains around here, or go on a DOC trip.
I think that's one of the cool things because it does kind of push those people a little outside of their comfort zone. And the point of one of the big points of it is we want people to appreciate where we are, because it's easy to feel like we're in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing to do because we're in the middle of nowhere and there's not a lot to do. But we're in this incredible location here in Hanover, absolutely. And there's just so many opportunities to do anything you want so nearby, and it's so beautiful. So even if the thing that comes out of it is someone from the city is wow, the woods of New Hampshire are beautiful.
Right.
That's awesome. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, and then who knows? Maybe down the road they'll end up creating another DOC kind of mini organization within the DOC, like the women's hiking group or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is cool. Okay, well, I'm going to check to see if we have any questions from our viewers on the live chat here. So one question comes from Dartmouth. And the question is, what do you eat on your trip? And can you, they don't want to eat trail mix the entire time.
Yeah.
And trips are usually between 3 to 5 days, or I'm kind of forgetting, I don't know if they're all the same amount of days, but.
Yeah, so you come into Hanover one afternoon, you spend one night in Hanover, and then the next morning you're off to start your trip, and then you have 2 nights in the woods, camping or in a cabin or whatever, depending on the trip, and then you spend the night at the lodge. And so obviously we feed you. The food's actually pretty good.
Yeah. I remember I had a newfound appreciation for Annie's mac and cheese.
Annie's mac and cheese is
after
a
DOC
staple. Yeah. There's bagels, pita, Cabot cheese is very important. Very important to Dartmouth and to trips specifically. A lot of different food. It's camping food because it doesn't need to be refrigerated and stuff like that. Usually make burritos. This year we send people out with couscous to do whatever they wanted with.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of different food. Dinner, I think dinner in the woods is usually burritos one night and then Annie's mac and cheese the other night.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people gain a newfound appreciation for iodine tasting water, which is not everyone's favorite, but I mean, it's a great experience, I think.
Yeah, no, I love the food on my trip. Now that I think of it.
It's good.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
It's good enough that all of the leftovers are now in the basement of Robinson Hall, and I did a little grocery shopping once I moved into my apartment.
Perfect. That's perfect. That's great. Let's check to see if you have any other questions. So someone here has heard of the lodge, the Dartmouth Lodge. Can you explain a little bit more about what the lodge is? How it kind of comes into trips?
Yeah, the lodge is actually really cool. So it's a big lodge that Dartmouth owns on Mount Moosilauke, and they are open all season, pretty much from spring until fall. They close down in the winter because there's less people hiking because it's cold. But they have lodging for like hikers and people coming through, and they make dinner every night and stuff like that. And so the cool thing about trips is trips are done in sections. Okay. So the sections each have about 100 people on them. And so your section all starts in Hanover together, and then you split off into your individual trips, which have 5 to 10 people usually. And then all of your section comes back together at the lodge for some fun stuff when you get back at the lodge, and you hang out there for an afternoon, and then you have a warm bed and a meal that's not Annie's mac and cheese, a really good meal cooked for you that night. And so the lodge is a really cool time to like get back together with your section and kind of meet up with people that you might have seen before and like not talk to, hang out with your trip. There's a lot more upperclassmen there, and so there's a lot. They do a whole program at night, kind of introducing you to more serious aspects of Dartmouth and introduce some more resources to you and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite parts was because you get so close to your DOC trip while you're out in the woods, obviously, because you're kind of isolated, and it's just your group and you're bonding over the mac and cheese and like the stars, which is awesome. But then you get back and you find out that there were all these other trips going at the same time, and like you have the whole section again, and you start meeting like meeting other people that did a completely different trip than you, but like had the same experiences that you did, and it's really cool. And then so you have you've already bonded with your friends, with your new friends here, and then you have a whole other group of friends, and then so there's kind of this. I remember after my DOC trip, there were all these people that were on my section, and we like had our section pride, and then we had like our trip pride. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of one more connection that you have to people starting off. So even if you didn't know people, like you might run into someone, introduce each other, and like find out you were on the same section. That's one more thing to talk about, something you have in common. It's kind of helps to break the ice with people, which is really nice.
Absolutely.
Another cool thing about the lodge is open in the spring and the fall, and so it's really nice, I think, to go up to the lodge. You can go up to the lodge and get a really good dinner for, I think it's $8 for dinner. Yeah. So and
it's like a 4-course meal or 3-course meal or something.
It's really good. Yeah. I think I'm actually going up tomorrow night, so it's kind of a nice way that you can stay connected with the DOC and with trips in OS.
Yeah, and then students can actually work at the lodge too, whether it's during an off term or during the summer or something. Yeah,
a lot of people work at the lodge during the summer. They have the lodge crew, which helps to run and clean the lodge and cook dinner and all that stuff. And then there's also a DOC summer crew that does trail work all summer and kind of maintains all the cabins. And so if you get really into like, you don't even have to be really into the DOC, but if you're interested in like spending a summer outside and playing in the woods, it's a great thing to do. It's a blast, I've heard.
Yeah, the lodge is beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's check more questions here. Okay, so the question is, what was the best and worst thing about your trip?
Ooh, my trip.
I'm trying to think of mine too.
Let's see. So long ago now, I feel so old.
Well, I think the best, well, go ahead, you go first.
Yeah. The best thing about my trip, I think, was having those resources available.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of things I was worried about coming in. And so my trip, like my trippies and my trip leaders aren't my best friends. They weren't my best friends freshman year. We got along fine on my trip, which was great. But it really kind of eased me in, which was really nice. Yeah. And I had someone to ask all those questions to, like, where do I get the best food on campus? Like, am I going to be able to survive classes?
Yeah.
And someone who was, like, down to earth and just only a year older than me, my trip leader was, who kind of kept everything in check and was like, you're going to be fine. Like, don't worry about it. Like, everything will be fine. And that resource, when I got back on campus and, like, more questions arose, I had someone to ask them to. Worst thing was it rained the second night and we were cold.
Yeah, those are very similar to mine. I absolutely loved my 2 trip leaders. I had 2 of the most awesome trip leaders. They were like enthusiastic and passionate and like just loved the outdoors, but also were so so passionate about making us feel comfortable and making sure that we knew everything was, and also keeping tabs on like how we were doing throughout the year. So they would invite us to different like trippy reunions, which is pretty common for most trips.
Yeah,
that once you get back, you kind of get together every once in a while.
Yeah.
Together. And then the worst part was definitely that it rained for one night on my trip too. We kind of bonded over the rain. I mean, you snuggled together, in the tent,
keep each other warm.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. And then I did rock climbing, so because it rained, we actually had to go to the indoor rock climbing gym. So Dartmouth has its own indoor rock climbing gym, which I had no idea existed when I was here. But it would also turn out to be really, really cool because one, I found out there was an indoor rock climbing gym wall. And then 2, like, it was still, like, rock climbing. We did cool things there, too. Yeah. So it was awesome. So much fun.
Yeah. I mean, trips don't always go off flawlessly. It rains. We can't control the weather, unfortunately. And things like that happen. It was chilly this year for a lot of trips, which was a bummer. I felt bad. But I think overall it's a great experience for everyone who does it.
Absolutely.
Even when you're cold, you come out. And I think the fun thing is things go wrong on trips a lot. One of my best friends led a trip this year, and they were trying to make couscous, and so they dumped this bag of what they thought was couscous into boiling water, and it was brown sugar.
Oh, nice.
So it just dissolved.
Sugary water.
When I ran into her trip later during this section, they had bonded over that, and just like the little things that go wrong and like the little quirky things that, because all the trip leaders aren't necessarily really outdoorsy or like into hiking and all that stuff. So like little things go wrong, but like I think that brings trips closer together, and it's really fun to watch that happen.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we've almost run out of time here. Thanks so much for coming, Emily, and talking about trips and DOC trips. Thanks for tuning in to Office Hours, Dartmouth Edition. We have our next tune in next time on Thursday for our next Office Hours, and we hope to answer some more of your questions then. Thanks.